I became an urban legend at my old summer camp, and no one knew I was sitting right there in the room when they told my story. It was the strangest feeling, Pert, hearing strangers use your worst moment as a cautionary tale. When I was 11, my parents sent me to Lake Evergreen Camp, a 2-week outdoor adventure program that was practically a rite of passage in our town. Examenin went there. Pat, it was where you learn to canoe, build fires, and experience your first taste of independence away from home. My cabin assignment was Pinewood, a rustic wooden structure with 6 bunk beds, being small for my age and perpetually last for everything. I got assigned the last remaining bed, Perta, a top bunk in the corner by the window. The first 4 nights went perfectly. I loved camp part, the outdoor activities, the new friends, the counselors who treated us like adults. But on the 5th night, something happened that would change everything. I was having a nightmare until something about being chased through the woods. In my sleep, I must have been trying to run because I rolled completely off my bunk. There was no safety rail, nothing to catch me, just a 6-foot drop onto a concrete floor. I don't remember the impact. My cabin mates later told me the sound woke everyone up. Murtier, a sickening crack followed by silence. Then blood began pooling around my head. The next thing I remember was waking up in a pediatric ICU with my parents' worried faces hovering over me. Epidural hematoma, brain bleed. The doctors told my parents I was lucky, Parrot. If the counselor hadn't acted so quickly, I might not have made it. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital and another month at home recovering. By the time I returned to school, the incident had faded from everyone's minds. I never went back to camp. My parents were too traumatized, and honestly so was I. 6 years passed. I was now 17 and looking for volunteer opportunities for my college applications. My high school counselor suggested becoming a junior counselor at Lake Evergreen Parn, the same camp where I'd been injured. It would look good on applications, she said. Shows you've come full circle. At first I refused. The thought of sleeping in those cabins again made my stomach churn. But then I realized something, Pear. Maybe this was exactly what I needed. First, my fears proved to myself I wasn't defined by that accident, so I applied and was accepted. During orientation week, all 20 junior counselors gathered in the main lodge for safety training. The camp director, a new guy who wouldn't have been there during my time, stood at the front of the room with a serious expression. Before we assign cabin duties, I need to talk about our most important safety rule, he said. No camper sleeps on a top bunk without a safety rail ever. My heart started racing. I knew what was coming. 6 years ago, he continued, a camper fell from a top bunk in Pinewood cabin, fractured his skull on the concrete floor, and nearly died. After that incident, the camp installed safety rails on all bunks and replaced the concrete floors with wood. The other counselors nodded solemnly. One girl whispered, I heard they had to airlift him out. That's not true, the director corrected, but he did spend 2 weeks in intensive care. The camp was nearly shut down over it. That's why we're so strict about bunk assignments now. I sat frozen, hearing my own trauma discussed as a cautionary tale. No one mentioned my name, Pear Tom. I was just a camper. My identity had been stripped away, replaced by the role of accident victim in their safety manual. The strangest part, I felt oddly proud. My accident had actually changed things. Those safety rails would prevent other kids from experiencing what I went through. When the director asked if anyone had questions, I almost raised my hand. I almost said, actually, that was me. But something stopped me. Maybe it was embarrassment, or maybe it was embarrassation that my story was serving a purpose better as an anonymous cautionary tale than as my personal trauma. That summer, I was assigned to Pinewood Parn, the same cabin where I'd been injured on my first night. I stood in the exact spot where I'd fallen. The concrete was gone, replaced by wooden floors. Every bunk had a safety rail. One of my campers, a small boy who reminded me of myself, asked if he could have a top bunk. Absolutely, I told him, helping him up and checking his safety rail twice. Just don't try to run in your sleep. He laughed, not understanding the reference. I never told anyone at camp that I was that kid from the story, but every time I helped a child into a top bunk and secured their safety rail, I felt like I was protecting my younger self in some small way. Sometimes the stories that shape us most aren't the ones we tell, but the ones others tell about us paint even when they don't know we're listening.